Hello, my name is Peyton Schaefer. This is going to be my code review for assignment 3, which is a keylogger that's going to run as a daemon as a service. So the keylogger is going to take in the input from the keyboard, log it to a file, and then the other requirement was that this has to be ran as a daemon or a service. So we'll say just daemon. So we got so far. So the includes that I have for this assignment. So we need the IO stream, which is our standard IO library, and then unit STD. So this is the standard library for the POSIX system. So this allows us to actually access the threads and the system session IDs. So this is so we can actually create the daemon. So these next two here, I'll just talk about it briefly, but the keylogger that I created doesn't work fully, so it can't log from any window. I did create a keylogger on a Windows system that can log from any window, but the problem with that is I couldn't figure out how to make the Windows system run it as a service or a daemon, so I just scratched that. But I'm still going to talk about the keylogger on Windows because it was really cool and efficient. So these two libraries are for the Windows keylogger, and then this last one, the F stream, is for the file stream, so we can write to a file. We're going to be using namespace std. So there are no constants and defines and no global variables. So the first function, so this is the logging function for Windows OS. So briefly, I'll just go over how it works. It basically, using this windows.h header file, we can communicate with everything and get chars that are being read. So we can just automatically get the ace. So like we have this char C here that we read in. So then we create an infinite while loop and we continue to read in this char C and we look at what its actual value is. So we see where it is. We have to do this for loop to see if this char is an ASCII character. So then we create this OF stream so we can write to a file. And then basically the rest of these are just trying to figure out what key it is. So this first if statement checks if it's an uppercase character and then checks if it's checks if it's a lowercase character and then writes it as a lowercase character to the file. This one writes the uppercase character to the file. And then the rest of these are basically checking for our number buttons. So like this first one's for 0 and end parentheses, the next one's for 1 and exclamation point. And basically this if statement checks if the shift key is also depressed. So if there's also shift key and we press that key, then we do the parentheses. Otherwise, we just do 0. So that's all of these cases. So just for the number keys. And then the last special cases are for a space, return, tab, backspace, and delete. These are just special cases, and we would actually write a file. Fortunately, this doesn't work on my computer, which I have MacOS on, so we can't use it here, but it's cool to see how really easy it is to create a keylogger for a Windows system. You just have to simply get the character and then just check what case it is, and from there we can log the correct keys. So this logging function is the one that I'm actually going to be using here. So this start logging function, so we have a character C, we have a OF stream out, so this is where we're going to be writing everything to. So what I had to do was we set the terminal to raw mode using the system call. Setting it to raw mode makes it so I don't have to press enter every time for a character to be read. So this is basically just allows us to type in the terminal window and all the characters will be read and then put into this out file over here. I'm going to do an example of it not running as a daemon so we can see. So because it works really nicely not running as a daemon. So this in main is just purely just to test just the keylogger. So the second part of the assignment was for it to run as a daemon. So this is what this actual main does. So the first thing we have to do to make a daemon is to fork it from the parents process and then terminate the parent process if that one's successful. So this is checking. So if there's an error, we say the error. Otherwise, if the PID is greater than 0, meaning that if we have the parent, we exit the parent. So then the PID of 0 would be the child process. So the next thing we want to do is create a new session ID. So we do that with set SID. So again, we call it and then we want to check if that is less than 0, meaning there's an error. We flag it an error and we exit the program because there was an error. But hopefully there won't be. So that's what this does, just creating a new session so that this daemon runs totally on its own. So then the last thing we have to do is fork the parent process again to ensure that it terminated. and to ensure that we got rid of the session of the leading process so that we just have this child process now. So we do this the same exact way as we did the first time. So we need to fork it, which I forgot to add. So we need to fork it again, and then we check if the parent process is good. So again, sorry for that little drop out there. So we fork the process again. So this is what this is. And then we, again, just want to do the same error checking, just making sure that the fork went well. And then if it did go well, we want to exit that parent process. And then the rest of the daemon is just exactly what we want the daemon to actually do. So in this case, it's our logging. So this is just starting the logging, and now we're going to be logging for the remainder. And then we return 0 at the end. So the first thing that I'm going to do is do a little example of just purely the keylogger. So I'm gonna comment out this main and then uncomment our other main, just so I can show just purely how the keylogging works. So the first thing we want to do is compile it, and then we will run our keylogger. So here it's running, so I can type, I don't know, hello world. So as you can see, it doesn't come up in the terminal at all. And even if I press Control C, I can't quit it. So we have to do the same thing. So we have to quit a daemon, so we have to do it the same way. So we find the process ID, and then we kill that process. So that stopped it, as you can see. And if we go to out.txt, we can see that it actually read all those characters, because I just typed hello world, and now they're in the out file. So that's how the keylogging function works. When we run the keylogging function as a daemon, though, we run into some issues where it just doesn't seem to capture every single key that we press. It captures a good chunk of them, but not all of them. And the other thing is that it also only will capture stuff running inside of this terminal window here. So it doesn't really matter else the type. But I'll do a little example of what this will look like running as the daemon. So we just got to uncover that. So then this function, again, calling this keylogging function. So now let's recompile it. Oh, same deal. 1 second. So I fixed the error. I just shouldn't have renamed it the same name, but either way, so let's just check that, make sure everything's working again. So we're going to compile it. It compiles fine. So now we're going to run our keylogger. So now that it is running, it looks like we just did nothing, but it's running as a daemon now. So I'm just going to type random keys. As you can see, that they're not all being captured, and a lot of them are actually coming into here, but that's okay. Now we want to stop it. So we're going to do get it, and then we need to give a kill call on the correct one. So 439. So we kill it. So this should now have technically ended it. And then if we go to our out.txt, it logged a good chunk of the characters. It did miss a few of them, but it still does log a bunch. It's kind of hard to do this on a macOS system because it's not really set up to really do the keylogging in this way, because keyloggers are a malicious thing, and they're usually done to steal people's information. But clearly, this function will log keys on the macOS computer, and then we run it as a daemon so that we can separate from the parent process, and it's totally running separately, and we could continue to do stuff in that terminal like it hadn't even been there, but we would be still logging keys from there. So that is all I have. Thank you.